Hello and welcome inside episode 13 of the Scully Scoop podcast. I'm your host, Adam Scully. Really exciting time in the sports world right now. PGA Tour is back. We're going to have a lot of golf content going forward here on the Scully Scoop podcast. Don't forget, subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube, where you can also watch these video versions as well. On today's podcast, we're going to turn our attention to hockey, and we're going to speak to a former Toronto Maple Leaf defenseman. He had quite a roller coaster journey here with the Maple Leafs, and that is Frankie Corrado. I also had a chance to play with Frankie way back in the day with the Vaughan Kings, and now he's actually signed a contract to play in Sweden for this upcoming season. I think it's time to go to Frankie Corrado. And we're pleased to be joined by professional hockey player Frankie Corrado, who has played with the Vancouver Canucks, Toronto Maple Leafs, Pittsburgh Penguins, and now he has a new venture coming up next season. We also played together way back in the day. Frankie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Man, it's been a long time. We were just talking before we started. We haven't seen each other in quite some time. This is certainly a weird time in the world. How has life in quarantine been for you?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Obviously, things are a little different now, but I've sort of tried to use it as a time to get some training in that I haven't been able to do the last few years. If you've followed my career a little bit the last few years, I've had some pretty bad injuries that have kept me out a long time, and this is actually the first summer since 2016 that I'm actually entering healthy. So it's a good opportunity for me to get some training in and kind of get ahead of the curve rather than just trying to get back to even. So that's kind of been my focus and my mindset going into this kind of quarantine or COVID situation that we're all in.
Yeah, right on. Now, a lot of people have talked about the quarantine 15 and trying to not put on 15 pounds. Have you tried some of the other things like cutting your own hair? Have you gone down that road yet?
No, as you can see, it's not getting cut, but this actually reminds me of the hair I used to have back when, I played on the Vaughan Kings and you were on the 92 Kings and I was the 93 Kings. And I always had the hair coming out of the bucket on the sides and in the back. And I probably haven't had that kind of hair or this kind of hair since then. So I'm just taking it as an opportunity to let it grow and feel like I'm 15, 16 years old again.
I love that. I've actually cut my own hair 3 times now. It's a little aggressive, but I went a little too high and tight on the sides. But I mean, you gotta do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even tell that you did. It looks pretty good from here.
I appreciate that. So you've also done some great things during quarantine. I saw something on social media last week with your former Kitchener Rangers teammate Ben Finelli. Tell our listeners about that.
Yeah, so we had a great group of guys in Kitchener, and pretty fortunate that a lot of us still keep in touch and have those friendships into today. And obviously, Ben Finelli being a big part of the organization and all that he went through, he really takes a big leadership role in that city and as an alumni for that team. So it was, he just wanted to get some players together and raise some money. And Mike Farwell, our play-by-play announcer for the Rangers, who does a great job. And I think he's just so loved by all the guys that come through there. So we raised some money for his cystic fibrosis charity that he works with. And we were able to raise some money, and it was a great time just hanging out with the guys and talking about old stories and the old days and how things how things have changed or for the better, and just how stories about junior hockey and where we're at these days. It's good times when you get together with guys like that.
Okay, so you mentioned working out, but in this day and age with gyms not really open, how creative have you had to go with your workouts? Are you looking up stuff on YouTube, Instagram, that sort of thing?
Not really. My summer trainer, Pete Renzetti, does a great job. He sends a workout over every day. At the beginning of quarantine, I kind of anticipated for this to be a little longer. So I ordered some, enough workout equipment to kind of get me by and get me, to do what I need to do. And, now that things are kind of easing up a little bit, we're able to do, small, like when I say small, 2-3 guys, workouts outside, at the track or at a hill or something like that. So we've had to get a little creative, but you just have to be prepared every day and know what you're going to do when you go into the day and make sure you execute it.
Speaking of preparation, you've actually just signed a contract overseas, as I mentioned off the top, and you're preparing to head over there soon. Tell us about this new venture for you.
Yeah, it's it kind of came up, and it seems like a great opportunity with a team, MODO, who's kind of a more well-known team in Sweden, and a lot of great players have come through there, and it just seems like a good opportunity to help the team. They've been relegated a few years back, so they're hungry to get back to the first division, and it seems like a good opportunity to play a lot and be someone who's counted on. And unfortunately, with the injuries and the way things have kind of gone in the last few years, that hasn't really been the case. In the last couple of years, so it's a new opportunity. It's something I'm looking forward to.
Have you ever been to Sweden?
No, I've never been to Sweden. I've been to Italy twice and Russia for a tournament when we were playing for Sudbury. So I haven't been overseas very much.
Awesome. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. I've only been to Ireland twice to play golf. I've never been to Sweden. It's on the bucket list for sure. Now, you mentioned MODO is one of the most well-known teams in Europe. Did you reach out to any former teammates to get any advice about heading over to MODO?
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. I got to play with Henrik and Daniel Sedin, so I kind of picked their brains a little bit about the city and the organization. And, the more I kind of asked around, I heard so many great things about the organization and the city and how passionate the fans are and how badly they want to win. And it adds a lot of excitement because there's a very passionate fan base there, and it's an organization that, has a pedigree for success. So that was really attractive when deciding to take the opportunity.
That's very exciting for sure. Now, you mentioned Henrik and Daniel Sedin. Some people maybe think of them as underrated or underappreciated, but you saw these guys day in, day out in practice. What was it like seeing them, try things that maybe they'd never try in a game, but made it look so easy in practice?
Yeah, and I think that's the great way to put it, is just they made everything look so easy, whether it was just how they carried themselves in the weight room and on the ice in practices and games and all their preparation. It looked so effortless, but they were just those kinds of people that they put their all into everything they do, and they really care about the people around them, and they were great leaders and great people to look up to. So they didn't get to where they were by accident, and it was honestly a pleasure to and a privilege just to get to watch them and play with them. And I'll remember, like my first training camp, watching them coming down on me on 2-on-1, and, just seeing that saucer pass go right over my stick. And then next thing you know, it's in the back of the net. It's pretty interesting, but they were incredible people.
Now, the most important follow-up question I have to that is, can you tell them apart?
Not at the beginning, but towards, not, I guess, the end of my time there, but I would say about halfway through my time there, I was way better at it. I could definitely do it.
It's funny too.
Took a while.
It's funny working in sports when they were playing, and one of them would show up to a microphone, and we were watching a feed in the newsroom at TSN, and we'd say, "Is that Henrik or Daniel?" And our reporters wouldn't even know. But I guess good on you for eventually finding out, because you spent so much time with them, right?
Yeah, you just gotta find, I just found a little facial characteristic that would set them apart for me. So that's what I worked with. But it did. Some days it didn't click in right away. You kind of had to take a second peek.
Yeah,
to tell them apart.
I can imagine. Now, during the time in Vancouver, John Tortorella was one of the head coaches. What was it like learning under him? Because he's still doing some great things in the NHL now.
Yeah, I mean, Torts was great for me. He instilled hard work, and he was obviously very demanding on guys, but he was fair. And the one thing I will say about Torts is that for how demanding he is and how much he wants out of players, and sometimes if he were to raise his voice or be hard on a player, when you do something great and you do something well, he's the first one to come down the bench and pat you on the back, or he's the first one to give your shoulder a rub after you did something good on the ice. So everything Torts does comes from a place of love. He loves his players and he loves his team. And he really wants everyone to be successful. And, even when I would see Tort, when I was playing with Toronto and Pittsburgh, he brings it in for a hug, and you could tell that, there's a lot of care there for his players. I have a lot of respect for Tort.
It seems like Tortorella is one of the final few old school coaches maybe in the NHL. I haven't played hockey seriously in 11 years now, and I feel like when we were playing minor hockey, there were a lot of coaches who would just sort of yell at you but then tell you they love you after if you've done something good. But now in this day and age of hockey, it seems like there's maybe more teaching obviously going on, but not coddling, but maybe coaches are nicer, I guess you could say, for the most part.
I would say the biggest difference I notice now is that it's not coaches versus the players. I think younger players coming up now want to know that their coach is in the battle with them. It's we're together, we're working in cohesion. It's not, you crack the whip and I got to go, do whatever you want me to do. It's, we're all in it together. And I think when you see that, I think you see players respond well to it nowadays. And so that's I just a small observation that there's just one thing that I noticed, how it's kind of changed.
Yeah, it's fascinating for sure. So you mentioned you spend time in Vancouver, and then comes Toronto, where you're claimed on waivers. Walk us through that experience, how you found out you were claimed on waivers, and the initial thought of, hey, I'm a Toronto Maple Leaf now.
Yeah, it didn't really sink in. Even I was a couple months into the season driving to the practice rink or going to the ACC, and it never quite sunk in totally that I was a Maple Leaf, and being a hometown kid, that was really cool. And I think just coming from Vancouver, obviously, there's a lot of changes over the years that I was in that organization, and it was a pretty not so great feeling. Getting put on waivers in the first place. Obviously, I never wanted to leave, and I really envisioned staying there a lot longer. But unfortunately, that's the way things happen sometimes. And just getting picked up by Toronto was like just the coolest feeling ever. It was I was actually at my grandmother's house because my parents were away on their 25th wedding anniversary trip, and I got a call from first I saw it on Twitter, and then 30 seconds later, I got a call from Lou Lamoriello just saying, he said, hey, we're going to get you a flight out to Toronto as soon as possible. I said, no, I'm already here. I came back because I was just going to grab my car in Toronto and drive down to Utica if I cleared waivers. And he goes, okay, do you want to come meet everyone? So I said, yeah, sure. I'll just head over to the practice rink. But I think I had some facial hair. So the first thing I said to him when I got there, I go, Lou, I'm so sorry I rushed over here, but I'll shave tomorrow. He goes, I didn't even have to say anything, So it was, everyone knows the rules when you show up.
Yeah, especially with Lou with no facial hair. I guess both of us right now couldn't play on a Lou Lamoriello run team because we're both sporting some beards right now. I remember trading messages with you that day, and your excitement was just through the roof. Pretty cool. What were the ticket requests like? You're a Toronto area born kid. What were the ticket requests like from friends, family, that sort of thing?
I don't know. I think my dad did a good job letting everyone know that it wasn't like unlimited season tickets for everyone.
For sure.
But I will say we definitely crowded the family and wives room a little too much as a as a unit. But it's okay. I mean, it's not it's not every day you get to play for the Maple Leafs, and I think there was just a lot of excitement in my circle of friends and my family, and it was a cool experience for sure. I mean, I don't regret any day of it. It's it's something I'll hold very closely as my career goes on and as my career ends.
Yeah, not many people can say that they played for the hometown team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, your time in Toronto, roller coaster, crazy. It was a multitude of different words you could use. You didn't really get to play in a game, until 10 weeks or so into the season. You were a healthy scratch. Mentally, physically, just how challenging is that to to practice every day, to bag skate every day, essentially, but not actually get to play in the lineup?
Yeah, for sure it was challenging in its own way. I mean, you weren't in the grind of the games and the battles and feeling the aches and pains, but it was more of a mental grind because I was 22 years old. So I really just wanted to be playing. I really felt that those are the years that you need to be playing and building your confidence and kind of honing your craft. And obviously, sitting out wasn't great for me in that sense. And I think that was my biggest fear about not playing, was just that other guys are playing, they're gaining exposure every night, and I'm just kind of stalled or in some kind of purgatory where no one's seeing you and you're not really developing. And you talk to guys who miss 2 to 4 weeks in a season and talk to them about how challenging it is to come back and play after that injury. When you miss 2 to 4 weeks, well, 2 to 3 months is even harder. And then the game, as the season goes on, the systems tighten up, the players are getting stronger and more competitive. And when you're not exposed to it, on even a semi-regularly basis, it becomes pretty challenging to jump in and adapt. But I would say that was the biggest challenge and probably my biggest fear with it, not playing.
Do you think things would have, maybe you would have not handled differently, but if you were, you're what, are you 27 now, Frankie?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you were 27. Do you think things would have gone any differently than, you've been a professional player now for 7-8 years, but back then you were in your third or fourth year? Do you think it would have gone any differently maybe?
Maybe. I think I'm probably more better equipped to handle it mentally now, right. Just being through what I've been through and the experience mentally. I think at 22, I was just really gung-ho on wanting to play and just wanting to progress and earn the next contract and establish myself in the league. And obviously I wasn't able to do that. So, but I think if I was playing and I got to that point, let's say I played in the AHL the whole time and I got to that point now at 27 where I was an NHL regular, well, not a regular, but if I was, being healthy scratch, I just think I would be able to handle it a little better. Just comes with age and experience, I think.
And the fact that, so back then that you were healthy scratch for all that time, how much motivation was there for you? Because that season you went on to play 39 games. How much motivation was there for you that offseason to say, you know what, screw everybody. I'm going to come back and have a great summer and make the roster next year?
Yeah, that was, and going into my exit meeting, I just wanted to kind of hammer that point home that, I'm coming into camp next year and I'm going to make the team. And I really, I hired a new strength coach. That's when I switched over to Peter Renzetti, and I just had a great summer with him and had just the right things going on, on the ice that summer. And, the fact that we did miss the playoffs, that gave me a little more time to train and put some more weight on and get a little stronger. And, even going through the contract process that summer and just signing, basically a league minimum one way, that kind of tells you that, like, you're not really guaranteed anything, but you'll have a good opportunity when it comes, camp time. So I was well aware of that. And I thought basically out of all the things that were in my control, I kind of took care of my own backyard that summer and going into training camp. And, unfortunately after training camp, I guess after, I think I played a game in Pittsburgh in early November and the game went really well. And then, after that, it's just, I was out of my control. I didn't get in the lineup and I just thought I would just do whatever I could that was in my control to the best of my ability. And that's all you can do. That's just what I kept saying day after day, week after week. And unfortunately, it kind of led me down to the Marlies and then traded to Pittsburgh and so on and so forth. But I think that was just my mentality that summer is, take care of your own backyard, do what you can, and let the rest kind of fall into place.
Be the best version of yourself today and worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow is a mantra that I've liked to live by, especially during quarantine. We're in conversation here with former Maple Leaf Frankie Corrado, who's on his way to MODO next season. Mike Babcock was your coach back then. Obviously, a lot has been said about Mike Babcock. Some guys love him, some guys hate him. What was your relationship like with him during that time where it was, quite frankly, just a challenging period for your career?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I would describe. I learned a lot about the game just being in the video and the meetings, and I think our teams we always pre-scouted other teams really well. So I even when I would go into watching a game in the press box, I felt like I really understood what was going on in the game, and could really see the systems at play. Obviously there's been other people that have come out and spoken about other, certain instances, and maybe I'm not going to touch on those kinds of things, but maybe I'll just say that, it was, it was obviously it's tough for someone to build confidence when you don't play, and especially when you play as little as I did. So, that was always a big hurdle for me. And, it's so funny. It's coaches always say, well, go have confidence, just here's your confidence. Well, confidence is something you build, and no one gives it to you. You have to build it yourself, and you build it through, daily repetition and doing things at a high level, every day. And so, I mean, when you're not playing, against other teams, and you're only just in practice, you don't really get to build that confidence. So, that was something that I think I kind of lacked, in those years.
Man, I got to applaud you for the way you're looking back at it, because it was obviously a tumultuous situation, but you have a great attitude about the entire thing. I guess maybe on a lighter note, there were some social media campaigns at the time, the Free Corrado. How aware were you of this? And like, were your friends just texting you off the hook saying, buddy, have you seen this sort of thing?
Yeah. It was nice. I don't know. I thought it was nice, I guess, support from the fan base. If it was anything other than that, then I never really thought it was that. I thought it was just, just the fan base kind of having a young local kids back, and just kind of wanted me to get in the lineup. And I didn't mind it. I mean, it's not something you want to be remembered for exclusively. The guy that kind of never got freed to play. Obviously, I wished my Leaf career took off the ground a little more than that, but at the end of the day, it's nice to know that there was part of the fan base out there that had my back and wanted to see me out there. So I'll forever be grateful about that.
Well, and speaking of the Maple Leafs organization, you went through some injuries, but then you actually signed an AHL contract with the Marlies. How thankful were you for them for that opportunity?
Yeah, that was really cool. I can't say enough great things about Kyle Dubas for that. I mean, so I was coming off my ACL surgery, and I got the green light to play. And my agent, who I've been with since I was playing, Vaughan Kings with you, and Joe Resnick, he reached out to basically all 30 teams just to say that I'm, ready to play, and got the green light. And one of the first callbacks he got was from Kyle. And I just remember him calling me and saying, Kyle Dubas called, he's interested. I go, are you joking? Like, like why? So, but that was really cool. I guess they were in need of a defenseman at the time, and obviously Kyle and Sheldon knew me from my time there, and I just so thankful that he was wanted to bring me back and play another year at home. I didn't even have the words for it. Like I tried to thank him over the phone, and even if I don't think I couldn't even describe it to you, just how how thoughtful that was of him to think to bring me back, and I don't know how to describe it. It's just I have a lot of respect for Kyle, and that was just really classy move by him and the organization, and I really felt appreciated.
Yeah, he really seems like a really good guy. And you mentioned Sheldon Keefe as well. And he goes to the point I was making earlier about sort of this new age of coach. Sheldon Keefe's a guy who blasts music during practices and has guys on different sheets at the same time for skills. What was it like learning under Sheldon Keefe?
It was great. There's just so much detail goes into, a day at the rink with Sheldon and the staff. And he does a great job of managing it all and making sure it's structured the right way and everything moves well. And he's one of those coaches that you feel like he's in it with you. He's in the battle with you, and we're all doing it together. And little things like the music at practice is great. It boosts morale on the ice. You have a little more pep in your step when you're doing the mindless kind of warm up drills at the beginning. And I thought it was great. And even just the way he sets up the skill sessions and kind of tailors it towards certain players having to do certain things on the ice. And I think I think Sheldon's got a lot going for him as a coach and as a person. And I'm just really excited. Well, really happy that he got the job, obviously, and really excited to see where he can take this team in the next few years.
In conversation here with Frankie Corrado, who's played 76 games in the NHL on his way to MODO. We just mentioned coaches, and there were a lot of bad coaching stories coming out. I guess this was around November. But on the brighter side of things, I was at a Maple Leafs game myself as a fan in December, and I ran into Louis Giladakis, who was with the Vaughan Kings, and your smile comes up immediately. And I saw him, I hugged him right away. I took a picture, posted to Twitter, and said, in light of all this, these bad stories coming out about coaches, Louis was the complete opposite, because for those who listen to my podcast, they know my story and that I was drafted by Erie back in the day. And then I was burnt out. I had enough of hockey. I didn't want to play anymore. But he was so supportive that way. And Louis was with us in the Vaughan Kings. Just talk about your experience with the Vaughan Kings and just how much of an impact they had on you making it to where you are today.
Yeah, I'm actually really happy you brought that up, because I wanted to mention this, but I didn't have a great segue to bring it up. So this works great. But Louis was awesome. So you were on the 92 Kings. I was on the 93 Kings. And Louis and I went back to when I was 10 years old, playing for the Marlies. He had the 92 Marlies. I was on the 93 Marlies. And Louis would call me up from time to time. But when I got to the Kings and we were in minor midget, I was in bantam and you guys were in minor midget, even like both years, like Louis would call me up and I would play more on Louis' team than I would on my own team with the 93s, which was great. And I think our coach actually had to tell Louis, you have to call someone else up now. You can and I think Louis was like, no, I'm taking Frankie. So, but I have a lot of respect for Louis. I still see him around the rinks and we talk, we talk like we haven't missed a beat. And I think that's the memory that sticks out the most for me is that, when he would call me up to play with you guys a year older, I would get more ice time than I would on my own team. So that was great.
Yeah, on a lot of those Vaughan Kings teams, we were sort of barely making the playoffs. And I remember one year, our other goalie actually quit. This was when I was in bantam, you were in minor bantam. And I think you and Jordan Binnington, who we'll get to momentarily, were called up almost every game. And I just remember even back then, you were so consistent, you were laid back, and you're the player you are today. You're just a really solid player.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And it's always nice when you're a younger player to get get playing with the older players, because it's a good gauge to see where you're at. And it's a little bit of a challenge, and you kind of see how you rise to the challenge. And, it's not easy walking into a new room with, older guys, and especially at that age, the one age kind of makes a pretty big difference. So you had a great team there's a lot of characters in that dressing room, to say the least. So, every time I walked in there, I know it was going to be a lot of laughs and a good time, no matter how the game went.
Well, speaking of characters in a dressing room, how about the 93 Vaughan Kings team? A lot of guys have gone to play pro, but Jordan Binnington, this guy comes literally out of nowhere to a lot of people and wins the Stanley Cup last year. What was it like for you, as I'm sure a buddy still of his, former teammates, seeing him lift the Stanley Cup?
Yeah, it's funny. I kept hearing out of nowhere. And yeah, maybe if you're like, I don't know, I don't want to call them an uneducated hockey fan, but if you knew Jordan and you followed his career, it wasn't out of nowhere. He was he was the best goalie in our age group every single year growing up. He was one of the best goaltenders in the OHL every single year. And then in the AHL, he put up all-star numbers. He his first couple of years, he got caught in a little bit of a logjam, had to spend some time in the East Coast League. Fine, whatever it is. But if you look at his numbers, it wasn't out of nowhere. His numbers were great every year. It was out of nowhere that the team just started winning like crazy. And obviously he was essentially the backbone of that. But it was great to see him finally get some recognition, because, like I said, he was just every year he was the best goalie. And you see I trained with him for a couple summers, and just to see all the hard work he put in, and just see his, how mentally strong he's become as he's gone with this process. I couldn't be more happy for Jordan. He's really put a lot into it, and he's starting to get obviously a lot out of it. And I think he's not out of nowhere anymore. He is the real deal, and he always was. And now just people are starting to see it.
He's finally getting the recognition. Like if Canadians are allowed to play in the Olympics, he's on that team. And something that happened early in his NHL tenure when he said, "Do I look nervous?" He's got that swagger about him that some people might think is cocky, but he's confident. And if you're confident in yourself, as you know, as a professional athlete, good things are very likely going to happen.
Yeah, well, that was, I mean, I don't know the reporter that asked that question. Like, I'd have to go back and watch it, but it's just a dumb question. I don't know why you would ask him, "Are you nervous?" Like, I don't understand what you expect him to say there. Like, the reporter got what he asked for basically in that question. So I'm happy Jordan answered it the way he did, because to me it just exudes the confidence that he has and the attitude. Like it was a Mickey Mouse question. So I don't know. I'm happy Jordan answered it the way he did. I thought that was outstanding.
It's awesome to see athletes show personality too, because you watch some interviews and, I could watch golfer X get interviewed. I could watch Tiger Woods get interviewed, and someone will ask a question and I could answer it for him because I know exactly what he's going to say. And that's where I'm trying to be this new age of journalist or broadcaster, that I'm trying to bring out, the backstory of an athlete. So it's awesome to see Jordan do what he did. Did you, were you at his cup party in July?
Yes, I was. It was great. And the cool thing about that, it was like a Vaughan Kings reunion. We had a picture with Jordan holding the cup and all the guys from the Kings that were able to make it. So that was really cool to see. It was like, Jordan obviously won the cup and brought it home. And, we got, I think, 10 or 12 of us in a picture with him with the cup. And that was really cool. It was a cool moment for all of us, to see Jordan with that cup and to take the picture with all of us in it.
It's pretty wild to see where players go, and awesome to see him have the success he had. Before I let you go, I got to tell a personal story. We were talking before we came on the air. One of the last times I can remember training with goalie coach Piero Greco, who's now with the New York Islanders organization still, I believe, as their goalie coach. It was a private session. It was 3 players on the ice. It was myself, it was Piero as the coach, and you were the shooter. And I want to say you scored 75% of the shots. And I got to say, I didn't break any sticks. I might have yelled a couple of times, but didn't break any twigs, didn't go for the, over the knee or anything. But, I always enjoy playing with you. As I mentioned before, even though you're a year younger on those Vaughan Kings team, I was a goalie who would always talk a lot on the ice and communicate. And you were always willing to learn. And Frankie, it's awesome to see you have the success you had. Good luck in Sweden. And I'm sure we're going to see you in the National Hockey League here in the next couple of years.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. It was great to catch up, obviously. And I do remember that day with Grex, and I remember Grex just saying all the time, just shoot it there again. Shoot it there again. Okay. So that's what makes Grex one of the best. So he demands a lot out of his guys, and I'm sure you felt the love from Grex too. So I really appreciate you having me on here. This is a great time.
Have you seen anything like that?
Many thanks again to Frankie Corrado for joining me right here on the Scully Scoop podcast. Pretty small world. We played together way back in the day, of course. His teammate, Jordan Binnington, who led the St. Louis Blues to a Stanley Cup last year. All the best to Frankie, as hopefully he can get over to Sweden very soon. And I'm sure we'll see him back in the NHL in future years. Well, this has been another fun episode of the Scully Scoop podcast. Subscribe to us on iTunes and on YouTube as well. You can watch right here on YouTube as well. And don't forget, follow us on Instagram at Scully Scoop. This has been a fun episode. I'm looking forward to bringing you another one. Next Friday, we release every episode. We'll see you next time right here on the Scully Scoop podcast.